All right, welcome to the Hudson Valley 360 Gridiron Glance. We're here this week with Coxsackie Athens' new head coach, Patty Bailey, taking over the program as one of the youngest coaches in Section 2. Thanks for coming.
Thank you guys for having me, It's an honor to be on here. It's fun.
Now, I was going to say, Patty, are you sick and tired yet of hearing you're the youngest coach in Section 2 at 24?
I wouldn't say sick and tired is the word. It's nice, It's nice to have, for me, it's a chip on my shoulder,
Sure.
It's definitely something that I carry around with me, and, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I try to balance all those things out. It's great to be young. Some people view it as an experience. I don't. Right. So, you just take the good and leave the bad and do what you can with it.
Well said. Now, a little bit of background. You played your high school ball at Niskayuna,
yep.
Silver Warriors, went on to SUNY Cortland, played for the Red Dragons. When did you first become interested in coaching? Was there a certain time where you just said, coaching is for me, I want to get into that one day?
Well, I think, I always had a slight interest in coaching and being around other students and helping other people out. But I think I really realized, I had kind of been leaning towards Cortland, and I had a couple other choices in Brockport and stuff like that. And I received a senior award about coaching through football, and I was the first ever recipient through Niskayuna to receive that award, and they still continue to do that. And for them to go out of their way to make an award for me, based on my coaching abilities, and not only my playing abilities, but my coaching abilities as well, that's when I really knew that I made the right choice. So,
what was your first job in coaching? When did you start?
Well, right after I graduated, going into my sophomore year of college, I decided to, volunteer at doubles for Niskayuna. So I helped out Scott Sabrin, who's now the head coach at Mohan.
Right.
I helped him out there with doubles. I did that for 2 years, and then, I played rugby in college, so that started, I had to go up early for that and everything. So, but getting my foot in the door, I knew that once I came out that it was going to be an opportunity to keep growing. So.
Do you have any coaching influences? Somebody who said, I want to model myself after this guy?
I'm a huge Steeler fan, so I've always looked up to both Cowher and Tomlin. They were both big influences. They have a very player sense to them.
Right.
I consider myself very much player's coach. I want to get to know my kids. I want to get to know what they are outside of football and what they want to be in life. And I think when I watched the Steelers when I was younger, they were very much like that, but they still have that stern, attitude to them where it's, let's get the business done first, and then we'll move on. So I think both of them had a pretty big impact on me.
Now, what's interesting to me is that you actually graduated, you got your master's this past May from SUNY Cortland, and then 3 months later, here you are, a head coach at the varsity level in high school football. Take us through the process a little bit. When did you officially get the job at Coxsackie Athens?
I officially got the job, I believe we started doubles August 14th. I think I got the job August 10th or 11th.
Really?
It was the Wednesday right before, and I had been going through the interview process there, and they said, Terry Nash is the athletic director there. I can't thank him enough for giving me the opportunity. And, he said to me when I was interviewing for the phys ed job, even if you didn't get the phys ed job, would you still be interested in head coaching? And I told him yes, and it's been a pleasure so
far. It all started out, actually, you were applying for a phys ed job.
I was applying for a phys ed job, and it said that the funny part is when you apply for jobs nowadays, it's mostly online, mostly through services like Olaf and stuff like that. And me and my girlfriend were looking through the paper, and there was an ad for Coxsackie Athens in the paper, and I emailed and called Terry Nash and said, hey, I'm interested. It said phys ed and football, baseball coaching. I was like, hey, I have experience. Here's my resume, and not thinking too much of it at the time, an ad in the paper just shows you how far that can go. So
newspaper, it works.
Exactly.
Now, you coached at Mohanison prior to this year, right?
Yes.
Just want to take a step back again. You coached. You were an assistant coach, and what did you coach at Mohanison? I
was the assistant coach last calendar year. I started in the spring of 2016. I officially was brought on board, and I was working with mainly wide receivers and defensive backs. I took a little bit of special teams on board, but mostly it was just my first year to get used to things, to see how things work on a day-to-day basis at the varsity level. Obviously, I'd had experience as a player, but coaching-wise, I'd only been through the doubles and nothing more. So to get a whole year, that was nice. I think that the biggest thing for me when I was brought on Mohan, Coach Sabrin has been a big influence in my life, and he was, we need someone to connect with these guys, a younger coach to get with these guys, and I think that really helped that first year, and that was a success both on the field and off the field at Mohawk.
While you're at Mohonasen, did you ever in your wildest dreams imagine 1 year later you're going to be a head coach in Section 2?
I definitely wasn't thinking 1 year later,
Sure.
And I know you and I have spoken about that. I wanted to be one by 30, and that was always my goal, and I told people on interviews. But 1 year later, I definitely didn't think so. But I'm truly blessed for the opportunity.
Tell us about the transition so far. I mean, going from an assistant coach at Mohonasen to being a head coach at in a conference that you hadn't played in or been involved in any way. I mean, mostly coaching at A schools or AA schools. Tell us about the transition so far.
I think the transition, has been something that has been a challenge for me. I think it's a positive challenge, though. First of all, was getting the ropes of the day-to-day stuff, what we're doing, and then, looking at the competition in Class C, it's really nothing different than what we see in AA and A. Really the only difference is there's 20 more guys on a roster when you get up to that school. Obviously the pool of talent is bigger, but down here at Class C, it's still the same grind. It's still the same grit and determination that you see out of those A and AA players and B players that you see down here. It's nice to see these kids getting some attention, both on the regional level and at the sectional level overall. So, I think the biggest transition for me has been, in practice, getting used to. I've always been accustomed to, like when I played at Niskuna, it was we were on defense. This is our defense. We got 13 guys, 14 guys that are defenders. We got 15 guys that are offensive players. You're going to go up against each other the whole practice. Whereas now it's, you have to get used to. Everyone's going both ways. You have to get used to, spacing out your practices and working in more drills and stuff like that, because you can't really go team the whole time. And so
now your offense has really been impressive, really impressive. I mean, you have the number one passer in Section 2, Mike Constantino, the senior co-captain. He has the most touchdown passes, the most passing yards. You have the leading receiver in Donnie Blowers with the most catches. You just have scored a lot of points. What gives? I mean, are you an offensive-minded coach per se? Or?
I think, we learned early on that our strength was passing.
Sure.
When we put the offensive in this summer, this is obviously they've run the triple option in the past with JP and Coach Huslander and everybody like that. So I think when we put this offense in, we had in mind that Mikey was our strength. Mike was our strength and Justice and everybody else. And I think that the biggest thing for us was we didn't care how we scored points. We just want to score points, and we want to control the ball. We want to control the pace. I think our kids do a really good job of adjusting to me, and I think that I give them all the credit in the world because I overcomplicate things sometimes. That's just who I am. I've always been not only a coach but a big Madden player, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And,
that's all right.
And I, sometimes I get in that mentality where I want to make one more adjustment, and I just have to kind of sit back and say, okay, this is working. I don't need to make this adjustment, but you can see whereas like Waterville, we're down 14 points heading into the second quarter. We make one adjustment on offense, and we're off to 24-28 going into halftime, and unfortunate loss. But it's nice to be put up the points. Now we want those points with a couple of W's.
Speaking of Justice Middaugh is also number one in touchdown receptions this year with 6. So you've got a couple of number ones across the board there. But so far, your overall record 1-3, 1-2 in the South Division of Class C, Section 2. This week you've got a tough assignment again. You're on the road on Saturday afternoon, I believe, at 1 o'clock against Voorheesville. Do you see? We're only 4 games into the season already, but it's a 7-game regular season. Do you see this as a must-win situation for CA?
Definitely. I think any divisional game is must-win, no matter who it's against. But especially on the road at 1-2, we've had. This South Division has been a nice roller coaster. It's been fun to watch, from both the inside and from the outside.
Yes.
Every week when we get off the bus, when we get home, we're always checking the scores, seeing what happened. Every team in the top half, in that top 5-6 of the South Division is competitive, right in the race for this. For not only for the title but for those 4 playoff spots. So I think going up to Voorheesville this weekend is a huge test. Coach Sapienza at Voorheesville has been there a long time, and he has always been great at making adjustments. I can see it in the film. I've heard about it from Coach Lochran and others. How great he is at making adjustments. So it's really going to come down to us being disciplined and heading up there and playing our game in order to come away with this divisional win.
Absolutely. Right.
So going forward, do you have any goals specifically for this season and beyond?
Well, I think, a goal for this season is we definitely want to get in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. That's the goal. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. We're going to continue to strive. We're going to continue to play hard. Even if we lose this week, we're going to play against Chatham and Caro just as hard the rest of the season and whoever our crossovers end up being. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, my goal as a head coach is, I want to be a Section 2 champ one day. Sure. I want to be a state champ one day, Just continue to build a program that, I think most of my kids would agree, we're getting better not only at football, but we're getting better off the field. And I think Coach Hustlander really laid the base for that. Yeah. And I think now we're continuing to see, that we can be successful, that we can do all these things. Mm-hmm. We can compete with the Waterfleets. We can compete with the Voorheesvilles and the Chathams of this division, We can go up and take on a Holy Trinity or a Stillwater in the playoffs, I think the kids are finally starting to see that. And I look forward to growing that this year and also in years to come.
Hear, hear.
Sounds good, and you're on the right track. Now we're going to move on a little bit to this week's coming games. Now, to touch a little bit on last week, we had Hudson-Ichabod. It was Ichabod's homecoming. We have some highlights of that game. Tim, you were there. How'd that play out?
There. Interesting game. On paper, Hudson comes in with a lot riding on the game. They have to win out pretty much to win the Rhineford Division title and to get the kind of seeding they want in the upcoming Class B playoffs. Willie Walker had a big game, 9 carries, 171 yards, 4 touchdowns. He had 8 carries in the first quarter alone, didn't play the second and third quarter offensively. Came in for 1 play in the fourth quarter, boom, 65-yard touchdown run. Special talent, the kid's amazing. Also for Hudson, Zion Brown, just played out of his mind. We're talking beast mode here, okay? Every time the ball was snapped, he was in the backfield. Every time the ball was handed off, the quarterback drops back to pass, he's in the backfield. Unbelievable game. Tyler Blue set the tone for the game with an 85-yard kickoff return on the opening kickoff, and everything went smooth for Hudson from that point on. Do want to give a shout out to Ichabod Crane, though. The Riders haven't won a game yet, but they are building. They're in the process of building something special there, as well as just like Patty is over at CA. They have a couple of really good building blocks to build around. Quarterback Austin Walsh, just a sophomore, big, strong kid. He was under pressure all night long. He'd take the snap, whether he's dropping back to pass or to handoff, somebody was on him. But he still completed 15 to 31 passes, 2 touchdowns, 129 yards, a lot of that coming in the second half. Some really good receivers to throw to in tight end Hayden Brookman and wide out Nate Ringwood. Nate Ringwood had 2 touchdown passes coming from Austin Walsh. The kids played a great game. They are definitely on the right track. They're one of those teams where maybe the wins won't come just yet, but if they keep building and playing as hard as they do now, you can see they get a couple more pieces there, they're going to be a winning program in short order, for sure.
And this week they go up at Shalmont, which isn't going to be an easy game for them.
No, Shalmont lost a lot. They're not the same Shalmont they've been, perennial playoff contender the last few years. They're 1 and 2 in the conference, I believe, 1 and 3 overall. I think Ichabod's going to go up there and give a good account of themselves. I'm not going to say they're going to win, but I'm not going to say they're going to lose either, so we'll see what happens. That's one of those pick-em games, as I'm sitting on the fence here, as I usually do, and but I think Ichabod's got a good shot there.
They do. And Hudson, big game this week. We have a lot of things going on with Hudson. They're opening up their new field on Thursday.
Yes.
And Friday they have their homecoming.
Yep.
Also a tough game. They're playing Cobleskill at home. Cobleskill is going to be one of the better teams in that conference.
Yes. This essentially, it doesn't automatically mean the winner of this game wins the Rhineford Division, but for all intents and purposes, the winner of this game will win the Rhineford Division, okay? And I'm going to go on a limb and say that. But Cobleskill comes in 4-0.
Yeah.
They have played some of the teams that may not be the strongest, we'll say, in Class B so far, where Hudson, on the other hand, has played, they played the 2 toughest teams as far as most people are concerned to begin the season in Glens Falls and Schuylerville. They lost those 2 games, but they were impressive in beating Ravenna. They beat Ichabod last week. This is a huge game. Not only is it homecoming, where there's always a big crowd in Hudson, but it's also the official grand opening of the new Blue Hawk Sports Complex, and it's a game for basically the Rhineford Division title. What more could you ask for? Be there. It's going to be a huge game. I'm psyched about it right now. We're still a couple days away, okay?
Yeah. Now, Takana Kills had a rough game last week against Voorheesville. You guys are playing Voorheesville this week, and you played Takana Kills previously. What do you think of Takana Kills?
I think Takana Kills is really one of the teams, their record shows not what the kind of team they are at all. I think that they have really started to come alive these last couple weeks. Like their first 2 games were Stillwater and Waterville back to back. That's a tough start. That's a tough start for anybody, And then they lose a close one to us. 0-0 going into halftime against Voorheesville. 7-0 going into the fourth quarter. Takana Kills held right in that game. I think they're continuing to fight. I think that's going to start paying off for them in the win column.
No question.
Yeah, and last week they have a couple guys that are really stepping up. Dusty Snyder's been doing well. Caleb Miller's been doing well. Shane Bradway kind of trailed off a bit this past week, but Tyreek Robinson is another player that's really stepped up. He seems to be Brandon Brewster's main target out there when he connects.
Yes.
And they're going to be at Chatham. Another tough game for Takana Kills. They just have a tough stretch opening up this season. Chatham 2-2. Their losses are tough losses.
Tough losses, exactly. They lost a tough one in the opener, a game they dominated time of possession, and by all intents and purposes, they probably should have won that game.
Right.
But again, that's ancient history. They lost to a Holy Trinity 13-6. They lost last week in the final minute of the game on a touchdown, 2-point conversion to a very, very strong Waterville Elite team. Those are the 2 losses, but they've been very, very impressive in the wins. They beat Cairo Durham, and then they beat a Tamarack team, which you guys have played earlier on, and they beat them handily, 41-0. Chatham is a good, solid team, and I'm telling you, I still think they can win the South Division title of Class C, despite the fact that they lost to Waterville Elite last week. They are still they're a playoff team. There's no question about that. And I'm sure they'll be one of the 4 playoff teams, but they still have a lot to play for, and still can come out on top in that South Division. Patty, what are your thoughts on Chatham?
I think that's a game that I've been hearing about since I showed up. And I'm very excited for that, to play them next week.
Sure.
I think that this will be a tough test for Taconic as well as Chatham. I hope that they, their styles kind of match each other. They're both more run-heavy teams than pass-heavy teams, but that doesn't mean that they both haven't thrown the ball well this year, because we've seen that out of both of them. I think Chatham, I agree with you, 2 tough losses. Waterville hung them on the hook at the last second, and I'm a big supporter of Holy Trinity. I'm up from there.
Sure.
My best friend went to BG when it was just BG and not Holy Trinity, and they played them tough. Especially to go up there, up north, and go and play in there. And that's a big team for them. And their 2 wins have been impressive, to say the least. Tamarack has looked not only great against us, but they pull out one against Voorheesville, and they play those other teams tough. So I think Chatham will be definitely a test for us, but I think it'll be a Saturday night game under the lights. I think there'll be a lot riding on the line.
Fun.
It'll be a fun time.
No question about it.
Now, last game of the week, we have Cairo Durham hosting Waterville. Cairo Durham, another team that's just had a tough run. I mean, the teams that they're going up against. Last week they lost to Tamarack 32-8. This week they play Waterville, one of the best Class C teams.
A very, very young team in Cairo Durham. Low numbers. They're still coming out fighting, playing hard, trying to tread water and stay above water. If anything, they showed some improvement. They gave up 80 points against Chatham, 60 against a very good team last week. And then to hold, Tamarack to 32 points. It's hard. The 60 points they gave up against Mechanicsville, which is a very good team that puts a lot of points on the board. To give up 32 points, it may not sound like much of an improvement, but it is. And so hopefully they can get it together and give Waterville a game. It's going to be tough, as you know. You play them; they've got some really, really good athletes. Tyler Beauregard, their quarterback, a good-sized kid. He can throw the ball. He can run the ball a little bit. He's got a good receiver in Matt Bell, and Kareem Duncan has nearly 500 yards rushing. So they got a lot of weapons, and let's just hope that Carroll Durham can give them a good fight and stay in the game, and who knows.
Yep, and Caro, again, still hasn't been shut out, so that's
no, they have not been shut out. Exactly.
Hang their hat on and
like we say, small steps, long journey. I mean, you got to build piece by piece. May not translate to wins right now, but in the future, these kids that are young now and taking their lumps are going to improve and get better and build a winner there eventually.
Now, Coach, you guys have a bit of a tricky situation. Also, you've been playing all your games on the road this year. No home games. How's that been for the guys? It's not a very far drive, but it's still a drive.
I mean, that turf.
It's nice to play on the turf. It's a bit of a different situation because, I think the biggest impact that it's had on us is, the sense of unity as a program. Sure. It's tough to get, JV guys to Ravenna on Friday nights. To get a ton of modified guys to Ravenna on Friday nights, whereas next year, hopefully, we'll have our own field and, varsity guys can go down and watch modified guys, and everyone kind of comes together as a football program. But that being said, our seniors have set a great example. Between Mike and Justice and Steven, those three senior captains have really set the example of just because we are 20 minutes away from home doesn't make it our home, and we've really established that when we come out on that turf, we play some of our toughest games. So
that's great. All right, well, I appreciate you coming by, Coach, and good luck this weekend against Voorheesville.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for having me.
And